A World Cup for the record books, plus a wild night at the NHL Draft and the crazy off seasons in the NHL and NBA continue. Couch Potato Diary is back, and it starts right now. Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out today. You saw it flash up over there. As always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca and grab all of that great Calgary swag. We got kind of hat there. It looks better than this. This one is very well worn. But we got that. We got the It Was In shirt available right now over at seaofdead403.ca. So, like I said, we got a lot to cover on the show. Want to jump into it right away, but first want to thank you guys so much. We've been back a little bit more regularly, and people have been tuning in. So, very, very thankful for all of that. Thank you guys so much. Again, if you're listening, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you are watching, hit that like and subscribe. Also, if you're listening, leave a review and follow me on social media. I'm at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. All right, let's dive right in. It is unquestionably the biggest win in men's soccer history in this country, as Canada is moving on to the round of 16 at the World Cup following a 1-0 win over South Africa. We're not going to go major X's and O's, but there is no doubt that this was a monumental afternoon, evening for this country. So, yeah, we've had some World Cup coverage on here, not as much as other places, obviously, but there's no denying that this was the biggest thing happening in this country, here in Canada, yesterday. Just an unbelievable night, afternoon, I guess it was, with the game at 1 o'clock out here in Mountain Time. And it's the type of night that draws fans in, right? And again, like, there were some people saying, oh, this is a sloppy game, X's and O's, whatever. But when it came down to it, there was drama, there was passion, and there was a victory, which for the Canadian side is obviously the most important, as they pick up a dramatic 1-0 win. And there is going to be a lot of discussion about how you follow this. How do you take advantage of this? How do you capture this moment if you are Canadian soccer? But right now, it's a moment. And whether they are going to be able to capitalize on it for 1, 2, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, who knows? But they've captured Canada now with that type of a performance. And you have people, the hardcores, who have been here with De Rosario and even before that, and are living and dying on every missed pass and every sloppy play and are getting frustrated at all of it. You have people who are just enjoying the party and hanging around. And you have people who are becoming soccer fans as this is rolling on. And all of them are able to kind of latch on now for another week and follow, like, just get hooked on that feeling, really, of what that team was able to provide. If they would have lost, it would have been disappointing, but I still think you can consider it a success from the Canadian standpoint because they're able to get out of the group stage for the first time, and they've got their first win at a World Cup. They got their first point at a World Cup. So they have been able to check a lot of boxes, and I think given the injury situation going in, I think it would have been safe to say that you probably could have looked back on it as a success. Now, it is unquestionably a success to be able to go with that. And I don't know if the Cinderella run is going to be able to take them past either Morocco or the Netherlands, who they'll find out a little bit later on here. As we're recording it, we don't know yet. And if they get past there, I think it's France. And if they get past that, it's Spain. Like, it's juggernaut after juggernaut. The team's probably not going to win the World Cup, is what I'm telling you. But what they have been able to accomplish for the sport in this country is second to none, really, especially on the men's side. The women's side has certainly have had their moments, and we have now had a generation of cheering along with them and hoping that they can get to another stage in their development. But on the men's side, it has been lacking for a really long time, and now it's not, and it's just been so much fun. Just a couple of quick notes. It was obvious Alphonso Davies was such a game changer for this team. Like, even he was obviously limited. I think that is very clear. He's obviously limited. He was also, in his limited state, obviously the best player out on the pitch when he was out there for 15 minutes, 27 touches in that time. It did seem like Canada was funneling too much over to him, so South Africa could basically just ignore half the field because they knew Canada, if it wasn't with Alphonso Davies, it was a pass or two away from trying to force it to him anyway. And so it did feel like there was a little bit of, here, save us. That was going on there, but in the end, they eventually come away with the win. It'll be interesting to see what Bombito can do beyond the 60 minutes that he played. I think it was 58, actually, that he played in the game against South Africa. It'll be interesting now with a week off, another week of rest, another week of getting back into game shape for Alphonso Davies. It'll be interesting to see what he can produce coming up here, but it was a moment. And it was almost a really frustrating moment, but it was such a fun moment when that one finally goes in extra time, or an added time or whatever. Sorry. It's not the soccer podcast. But it's elation, and it's so great to see. And now it is up to the Toronto FCs, the Vancouver Whitecaps, the Montreal Impact. It is up to the Canadian Premier League with Cavalry FC here in Calgary to build off of this now and try to capture people's attention in this sport and continue to grow it. Because there's no doubt they have been handed absolute gold based off of this. It is now time to see, can you progress this sport to that next level? So where did you guys think? Where were you watching this one? How did you take it in? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments, because it was just a wild afternoon. And of course, hit me up on social media. I'm at Primetime Klein, Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and over on Blue Sky. It was the NHL draft that no one really saw coming. A few surprises early on shake up the board and put the Calgary Flames and other teams in really interesting spots. Let's break down what was a bit of a wild NHL draft for 2026. So we all had a pretty good idea of what was going to happen at 1. We generally assumed what was going to happen at 2. And even at 3, there was a little bit of but we knew what was going to happen at 3. We didn't have a damn clue that was going to happen at 4. And then it was going to happen at 5. And honestly, even at 6. It's set up for a very interesting top 10 in the NHL draft. So let's break it down. And first of all, the focus of this show a lot of times is on Calgary. Certainly seeing from the numbers on the Nemec trade, that's the focus of a lot of you as well. So we are going to start here with what the Calgary Flames did at the NHL draft, as they go Carson Caerls at number 6, the big left shot defenseman from the Prince Cougars, as it was said, with the Hall of Famer Lanny McDonald, but the Prince George Cougars. Getting Carson Caerls to the Calgary Flames. And immediately, it's a bit of a darling. I do just want to say, like, all the people being like, oh, that'll win the hearts and minds of all the people in Calgary. It's like, I get, like, Stampede's coming up here at the end of the week. We're not all Cowboys. I just want to make that abundantly clear. I think anyone who's followed my career in any stretch has a pretty good understanding that I'm not a Cowboy at all. So let's not just assume that we're all just farming out here. But that is the type of work ethic that this fan base has really kind of fallen in love with. And now it's a fun story. And now it is a blue line that is absolutely locked in. And when you think back to when this team has had their success in the late 80s. They get to the Cup in 86. They win it in 89. At that time, they had to go up against Gretzky and the Edmonton Oilers and the high-flying team that they were. Difficult to play against as well. But the Flames, and this is oversimplifying, but the Flames had success by mucking it up a little bit. Like you have plenty of skill and all of that in Theo Fleury. But even he wasn't your typical small guy. He was going in there and mucking it up and getting things dirty. And like Doug Gilmour bringing that kind of sandpaper. Joel Otto providing that as well. You have Lanny with the leadership, and then you have this blue line with McInnes. Suter gets hurt, but you have these guys on that blue line who are really trying to lock it in. And then in 04, obviously, like it's Jerome McGinley, Mika Kiprasov, and the Flames, but it was a hard-working, grinding-it-out group. The Flames, I don't know if this is going to be really the grinding it out group when you look at the names on this blue line, but the Flames, it is very clear a couple of things. Like, A, they are building from the back out. They have the goalie locked in, and now they have a defensive core that if it all hits, which it never does, but if it all hits, looks like it could be very dangerous for a really long time. And now it's time to address the forward part. The other thing is that they obviously went with who they felt was best player available and best fit available. I was surprised that as the draft was falling, with McKenna at 1, Stenberg 2, Malhotra 3, and then Daxton Rudolph goes 4 to Buffalo. Albert Smits goes at 5 to the New York Rangers. All of a sudden, when it was, okay, well, like, yeah, Reed's not going to be there, but yeah, I get, you know what? It's probably going to end up being Caerls, because I had kind of thought Reed was going to go probably 4, and then everything gets kind of shifted around. I didn't think Viggo Bjork was going to be there for the Flames. I certainly didn't think he was going to be there along with Chase Reed to the Flames. And so for them to pass up on both of those did surprise me a little bit. The Reed one you can kind of understand, late bloomer into the draft process, and the right shot, I do think probably played into things a little bit. The Bjork one did surprise me because it's center, which is a positional need for the Flames, unquestionably, right? Like, the number one center in the organization right now is Morgan Frost. And then there's a gap. I guess Michael Backlund too, but if you were looking futures-wise, like Cole Reshny projects to be the number one center on this team, and I don't know if that is really where anyone has him kind of situated. So there is an obvious need at the center spot. And then you hear all the talk about how he has that dog in him and how he, like, the big comparison that I'm making now is like, could this guy have fit in that Stanley Cup final with Vegas taking on Carolina? And there's no question that Bjork could have, right? So I thought he checked all the boxes that the Flames would want, but you hear them gush about Caerls, and he is a well-rounded defenseman. There's a leadership quality with him. There's obviously the work ethic that comes with being a farm boy from Manitoba. And so you hear them really gush about this dude, and it becomes abundantly clear what they were looking to do. They felt like this was the best player on the board. It's not exactly a positional need with blue line necessarily, but he has a left shot, which they don't have in abundance at this particular time. And so all of a sudden you now set up your organization with a guy who they think can be a future captain for them. So I was surprised, but I do think that it makes sense. And so again, you look at where this blue line is set up for the next little while with the left side, where you would have a Caerls, Ball, and Kuznetsov on the left. On the right, you would have Parekh and Nemec and Bruce Davich. That sets up in a very, very exciting way for this Flames organization. And I tweeted out as much throughout the week, or during the draft there, that is scary, scary good. And 2 replies came to that one generally. One was, that's awesome. The other was, okay, now do the forwards next. And then someone did like question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, Coronado, and then all the question marks after that. And admittedly, yeah, you know, like there is, when you look at how they're set up in goal, how they're set up on the blue line, and how they're set up at forward, one of these things is not like the other. There's no question about that. This is also a process, and this is a part, and I was surprised at the amount of people who I saw calling for a rebuild 18, 12, 6, 3 months ago for this team, now being upset that the process might take a little bit. I don't think Viggo Bjork finishes the rebuild for the Flames. Obviously not. And I don't think Caerls does. Like, the Flames went into this needing a top-line center. And they come out of this still needing a top-line center. I would argue they still would have needed that with Viggo Bjork, but your mileage may vary on that one. But this is a process for the Flames. And when you are in that process, I don't think you can afford to be as narrow-viewed and as just laser-focused as some people wanted them to be on the center spot. Yes, if they do not go out and address scoring in the next few years, then it's going to eventually be a problem. But they do have years. Caerls isn't even going to play on this team next year. Like, Bjork might have been able to, but I don't know if that's more just what's on the Flames than anything else. So, yes, forward is going to take some time. I don't think it's as barren as people are pointing out. Like, I do think Gridden can be that kind of a guy. I do think Coronado can be that level of a guy. I do think Reshny is the type of center that you win with. And then you have some lottery tickets, right? Like, there's no question. Like, Suniev, who knows what he's going to turn into. People pointed out I missed Muse, I guess. Like Zeri, who knows what that's going to end up being. Sharon Govich, who knows what that's going to end up being. Stromgren, along those lines, right? Like, there are a lot of question marks. But they still have time to address it. And this is the rebuilding part of all of this, is that you are building things. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day is a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. This is going to take time. And I think that is something that Flames fans need to recognize. So yeah, like, do you come out of it feeling better about how everything kind of slots in? Maybe if you get a Viggo Bjork? Sure, yeah. Did the Flames get something that is going to be probably quite beneficial to them down the road? Absolutely 100%. And it is right now, it is about raising the level of talent that is in this organization, and Caerls does that exponentially. Also, and people who have listened to a lot of my stuff will probably be sick of me saying this by now, but pay attention to the trade boards when they come out, whether it's here in the offseason or around the trade deadline, and look at when they're saying, like, okay, this is the trade preview. This is what this team needs. How many top-level teams need right shot puck moving defensemen? Well, the Flames have a bunch of them now. So odds are those guys that we stacked up at the forward group or on the blue line, even at forward, but odds are it's not going to be 6 for 6. You're not going to hit on all of those. We have seen it a lot here in the NHL over the last little bit. It is going to be hope a couple of them hit and then hope a couple of them stay high enough assets that when it's time to go out and get that big name, you can package them together, off they go, and now you can get that big name. It is about, it's gross to talk about humans in this way, but it is about asset management, asset acquisition, I guess. And right now the Flames acquisitioned a really good one. So I think they did a good job, even if I was surprised by it. I was surprised. That doesn't mean I think they did the wrong thing with that particular draft pick. Moving on to the rest of the NHL draft. The Leafs get it right with Gavin McKenna. This is a guy who was being talked about at that tippity-top high level of prospects at the beginning of the season, and I did not like that there was the potential that this kid daring to be great and daring to challenge himself by going the NCAA route, going into a country he's never really played in before, going into a league and an age group that he's never played in before, and all of a sudden he's having a bit of a stumble, and everyone's like, oh, well, maybe it's not the same. It's like, yeah, no kidding. Like, there's going to be an adjustment period here. And I think it would have sent the wrong message if Gavin McKenna ends up going 3 because he went the college route. I do think that it was important that he finished the year strong, but I do like that he went to that level, had troubles, figured it out, and then finished the year strong with Penn State. So all the things that were gushed about with McKenna at Medicine Hat a couple of years ago are still there to be gushed about with this kid. And I like that because he went through those trials in at Penn State, that there is now a little bit more to him, and you can feel maybe even a little bit more comfortable about where he is at compared to if he would have gone to Medicine Hat. He would have put up 200 points, they would have lost 3 games, and it would have been stone cold lock. Yep, this kid's number one, we're getting it. He went, he challenged himself, faced some adversity, and fought through, and I think he's a better player for it. So I think the Leafs make the right decision in going out and grabbing a Gavin McKenna. Up next, you have the San Jose Sharks, who obviously are one of the winners of the draft, as everyone is talking about. As they get Stenberg, they get Verhoff, and they get Lynn. Stenberg, this one was the pick that made all the sense in the world once they make the trade for Eklund to the Ottawa Senators. This one just, like I said, makes all the sense. It gives them a absolutely terrifying forward group. And then they add the size of Lynn, who was surprisingly falling in this draft, and Verhoff, who at one point was challenging McKenna for number 1. Like, we went through the year where it was McKenna, Verhoff for a moment, and Stenberg as the number 1s. And they got 2 of them. So just a monumental night for the San Jose Sharks. And they are building what looks like it could be a dynasty right now. Obviously, we need to pump the brakes on it a little bit. They haven't even made the playoffs yet. But as far as draft, develop, roster construction goes, this is about as spot on as you can do. And I will admit, I was very critical of Greer a couple of years ago when I thought he was bailing out the Oilers in bringing on, I think it was the Ceci trade, right? Like, he brought on Cody Ceci and gave something up. And I was like, what are we doing, bailing these guys out? Whether that was just a stroke of genius or just some growing pains for him, he has now put together a roster that should be competitive for a very long time. It's now up to them to get this across the finish line, but it feels like as close to a sure thing as we've had in a really long time with how well San Jose has been able to build up their roster at this particular time. The Vancouver Canucks complete an awesome story as they bring in Caleb Malhotra, and you do see some people like saying like, oh, drafting the coach's kid at 3, that's gonna work. But every draft board had Malhotra basically 3, right? Like 3, 4, and just to see how he worked through the process, starting out as like someone who wasn't even really in the first round, but working his way up on a very talented team in the Ontario Hockey League and battling his way into getting minutes, high-level minutes, and showing the levels of compete, hockey IQ, and talent that you need to win at any level of hockey. He became undeniable. So the Vancouver Canucks could have had Joe Blow as their head coach, and I think they still would have drafted Caleb Malhotra, and I still think it would have worked. Now, there is obviously going to be an extra level of scrutiny with this. He's going the college route, so it saves him a couple of years probably of it. But there is going to be a time where that Vancouver media is going to be questioning, like, is he getting this opportunity because he's him? Is he getting this opportunity because of talent? What's going on here? Like, they can be a little tough out there at times. So there's a lot on the line here for Caleb Malhotra. I think he is ready for it. This does feel like the kind of guy that you win with. And then things get a little crazy as the Buffalo Sabres go a bit ahead of schedule and draft Daxton Rudolph. This was where I think a lot of people, especially after the Byram trade, I think a lot of people were assuming, all right, they're going to get Chase Reed and they're going to kind of lock in from there. They go the Rudolph route, and it does, at this point, it tells you that Reed was not viewed as highly in the NHL as he was amongst the draft community. I think that became abundantly clear as this process was going on. But it does also show, like, we had a bunch of people kind of lumped together in that. It felt like that top tier was, depending on who you asked, it was either McKenna and then a tier below was Stenberg, or top tier is McKenna, Stenberg. And then below that is kind of just Malhotra. And then after that, you had Rudolph and Smits and Reed and Bjork and Caerls. You probably put Tynan Lawrence and Keaton Verhoff in there as well. You had this group that we all kind of assumed were kind of close together. But as the process went on, we all kind of figured that it leveled out in a certain way. But this shows that they were all probably pretty close in a lot of draft rooms. It is also not the first time Jarmo Kekalainen has gone a little off the board at times. At least this one, they had graphics ready and highlight packages ready for the guys instead of flipping through binders and like, who the fuck is this guy? They've been able to do, like, he has taken some shots, that's for sure. This one, like, again, Rudolph feels like he's going to be a solid defenseman, but now he is going to be compared to Smits and Reed and Caerls and Bjork and Verhoff for the rest of his career, and he's going to have to be the best of them. So it puts some pressure on him. I'm sure he is going to be fine with that pressure. It was a surprising pick from that Buffalo Sabres team, and that kind of started a bit of a interesting situation, anyway, at the NHL Draft. Next up, it was another one that was a little bit off the board with the, we're not going to run through pick by pick here, but up next it was the New York Rangers going a little bit off the board with Albert Smits. Smits, when you hear, like, we had Sam Cosentino on the radio here in Calgary talking about how he was kind of the most pro-ready guy. He's going to be ready now to play. Maybe he doesn't have the high ceiling of a Reed, a Caerls, or any of those guys, but probably got three. Even a Verhoff, I suppose. But this guy is going to give you a much safer floor than any of the others. And so I'm a little skeptical of what the Rangers are doing. They made the Dorofeyev trade earlier in the day. We'll talk about that here in a second. They make the Dorofeyev trade, and they bring in the guy who feels like he's the most ready to contribute now, but maybe doesn't have the highest ceiling. And it does kind of feel like the Rangers aren't going to go necessarily the tear down rebuild direction. It looks like they're going to try to make a nice tight pivot and get this thing right back on the tracks out in New York. So I think Smits is going to be good. I think he's going to be solid, just kind of steady. And for the Rangers, they've hit some home runs before, but they've had some big strikeouts. Sometimes it's nice to just hit a double. And it feels like that's kind of what the Rangers were going for with this one. I just worry about what it says about the direction of the team going forward here. After that, one of the big wins, I think, is Seattle getting Chase Reed. And they had a tough week in Seattle with trying to get some high-end talent coming in, with Jason Robertson just flat out saying, no, I'm not going to Seattle. I'm not going to sign an extension out there, even though they offered him what I would consider to be probably a pretty significant overpay. I can see where Seattle will be a bit down in the dumps, but to come away with this, with Chase Reed, who might end up being like the second, third best player in this draft. That's the type of high-level player that this organization has needed. And so I think that they come away from this one being a massive winner of how the first round played out because they needed this level of guy to come into their organization and help out. I still don't think the decision-making is good in Seattle, and I will say that into every microphone in any room that I'm asked about. But this one helps them out a lot and is the type of player that they, I think, desperately needed there for a while. The other one that I think really does get a big to-do off of their list is the Winnipeg Jets getting Viggo Bjork. He is exactly what they have needed for a while. Basically, since Little couldn't come back from injury issues. They have needed a second-line center for a while. Now, I don't know if he's going to be ready to play this year, or I don't know if it's best for him to play this year. I guess I should say that. I think he's probably ready to play this year. I just don't know if he's also a finished product. And so for Winnipeg now, do you try to just bring him in, get that excitement going? They need that building filled, and they need to get on with the winning right now. Do they do that, or do you let him develop, try to piece together a second-line center the way they've done for a while, and then still have that excitement to come with a Viggo Bjork? It's going to be interesting to see how they use him, but he plays a Winnipeg style. He is the exact position that this team needs. Like, it's just check, check, check across the board for a Jets team that is facing a lot of interesting decisions coming up here in the weeks and months ahead. So fantastic work by them and getting the guy that I think they really did need from this draft. It played out perfectly for Winnipeg. So overall, like I said, it was a bit chaotic. After that, it felt like things normalized a little bit. You love that the Rucks get together out in Pittsburgh. That was a really cool moment to have them get there. Really neat that Joe Iginla ends up going to the Calgary Flames. It did feel like maybe a bit of a reach, but I don't hate it. I think the Flames overall did very well in the draft, and so reaching on one, okay. There is a sentimentality to it. And I think the kid could end up being something at the NHL level. So there's a little bit of that. But what else? Like, obviously, we kind of covered the main stuff up at the top. But what caught your attention from the NHL draft? Hit me up in the comments, and we can keep that conversation going there. Also, Couch Potato Diary is available in podcast form. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, like, subscribe, leave a comment. But if you want to bring Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go, check us out on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Beyond the NHL draft, it was another wild weekend for player movement in the National Hockey League as a trio of very interesting moves. I don't want to say shakes everything up, but it does set the table for a couple of interesting things. So let's break down 3 really big moves that happened this weekend at the NHL draft. So this isn't in any kind of chronological order or anything. It's literally just in the order I wrote them down. But up first, we have Mason McTavish going to the St. Louis Blues. In exchange, St. Louis, who had 4 picks in the first round, they move 15 and 29 to Anaheim for McTavish. On the Ducks side, this is a home run for them. This was a player that wasn't fitting in to what they were looking to do. I was wondering if they were going to try to flip those into actual NHL players, because I think there is still some needs on this Anaheim team. I'm a little surprised they went futures, but getting 2 first-round picks here for a player that wasn't fitting into your long-term plans, that's the way that you kind of replenish on the go, and a very, very smart use of your assets. So a little surprised it was futures, but for Anaheim, I think it's a smart move, assuming that the kids that they drafted in those spots are able to kind of help out with the NHL roster. On the Blues side, I see what they're going for with McTavish. He is a young talent, again, whether it's underutilized or underperformed in Anaheim. A big difference, one word, but a big difference. But they are now hoping that in this rebuild, they now have a bit of a cornerstone piece, right? Like they've moved on from Kyrou. They're probably going to try to trade Thomas and Parayko at some point here in the offseason. But they are now hoping that they have kind of the centerpiece of this, a guy who can play center, he can play at the NHL. And now you are hoping that given some extra minutes, extra responsibilities, that he can thrive in that role. The thing for me for the Blues is that this feels like a pretty steep price to pay to an Anaheim team that knows this guy wasn't fitting in with their group. And I'm sure there are other teams knocking on the door for a McTavish, but 15 and 29, it just felt a little too high for a guy who wasn't fitting into the other team's plans, and for you, who aren't going to be good for a while. So, like the 29th one, that is what it is. 15 did feel a little high for that trade to be making that one. So it feels like a bit of an overpay. They still come out of the weekend with Tynan Lawrence, Maddox Dejanay, who I really liked, and Mason McTavish. So it's tough to say big loser for the weekend. It just felt like a touch of an overpay on the St. Louis Blues side of things. This next one, I don't really get it. The New York Rangers acquire Pavel Dorofeyev from the Vegas Golden Knights for the 26th overall pick, the 92nd overall pick, and a first in 2028, top 10 protected. So for Vegas, again, this absolutely slaps. Like this is so good for them to be able to get 2 first-round picks out of this and the 92nd overall pick as well for a team that doesn't have a lot of draft capital, does not have a lot of organizational depth coming in. To be able to get that for a guy who wasn't going to fit into your salary cap anyway, again, fantastic work, I think. It does, like, it makes them worse right now to lose a Pavel Dorofeyev that was a big scoring option for your team, but you can see in that cup final a little bit of concern about, to steal the basketball term, a little bit of concern about creating his own shot, because it went very quiet the second that things went a little bit quiet for Jack Eichel. So you get some concern about what's this guy going to be? Can he be that guy? They signed him to a big extension with the Rangers, but for Vegas, it's obviously a bit of a step back, and it's a position they're going to need to fill. They're very good at doing that, and they now have a little bit more ammunition getting that draft capital in. For the Rangers, it is much like their Smith's draft pick, where I like the player, and I think it is going to be a productive one. And again, I can see where they're coming from. Dorofeyev was an RFA. He's not an old guy by any stretch of the imagination. I just worry about giving up that amount of assets, that this is a team that is going to look to turn it around very quickly. Now, after the Panarin trade, they didn't get a whole lot for it. I thought that, okay, teardown is coming. It doesn't feel like that's the way it's going to go, and I feel like that's the direction they should be going right now in New York. And so Dorofeyev, again, I don't know if he is best player on a championship team. I think he needs high-level setup guy to help him out, especially at 5-on-5, and they just traded away their high-level setup guy. So I don't know if they have the pieces there to get the most out of him, and with the contract that they signed him to and the amount that they gave up, they're kind of going to need the best out of him. So it feels like a tough fit. It feels way early in the process for them to be doing this, and it just feels like a directionless team right now, and one that I do not trust the general manager for. So a bit of concern surrounding where the Rangers are going with this run. The last one is the Utah Mammoth making the move, sending J.J. Peterka to the Bruins for a 2026, the 23rd overall pick, and again, top 10 protected 2028 pick going that way. So people, I guess, either very high or not very high on 2028, and no one's touching 2027, which is interesting. But for the Bruins, this makes a ton of sense. You could see, like, they kind of ran out of scoring in the series against Buffalo. Like, they just didn't have enough guys. Peterka can be a guy, right? Like, this is his third team, so you get a little bit worried about that. But he can be a guy. He can be a dude who goes out there and puts up some big numbers for you scoring-wise, and that's something Boston needs. So to give up the 23rd overall pick, fine. And they're in a spot where giving up picks, like that's okay. They are back into win-now mode, and this one helps them out there. For Utah, I'm surprised. So I don't know if there was some displeasure from Peterka or what was going on out there, but they're on the come-up. They're on the rise. And so to not get a piece that you can feel really good about and instead try to make 4 quarters equal $1 with this, I'm surprised they're going in that direction. So with all of these, it is an incomplete picture right now, but on the surface at this time, I really don't like this move. It feels like an unnecessary step back for Utah at this particular moment, and that's a bit of a bummer because they were a really exciting team to watch on their rise to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So let me know what you guys think. Winners and losers from these trades. Hit me up in the comments, or if you're listening to this, find me on social media. I'm at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Love the community that we've started to build here on Couch Potato Diary, but want you guys to have more people to chat with. So hit that share button, share this with your hockey fan friends, and let's keep that conversation rolling. The Toronto Raptors are ready to get hurt again, as reports indicate that they are all hot and bothered about trying to acquire Kawhi Leonard, who this time we promise he's going to want to sign a contract extension. Does this make any sense for the Toronto Raptors? Let's try to figure that out together. So, all the reports out there are suggesting that the Raptors are involved in heated trade discussions for Kawhi Leonard. And look, obviously, the Raptor fan, I didn't realize how Raptors-y this actually is here today, but we got We the North NBA Finals shirt. We got the Kawhi jersey sitting right there, and there's a picture of him. It's a little hidden by a Labubu, but you can see the Kawhi picture right back there. So, obviously, this is a player whose time in Toronto I appreciated, as he brought the Raptors their only championship. And then he left. And that hurt a lot of people, obviously, because when you see what the talent on this roster was and what it has turned into, and if he just could have stayed, then maybe there's a lot more that this team could have accomplished. Instead, he goes to the Clippers and doesn't really accomplish a whole lot, and now it's extension time, and maybe he doesn't want to sign in LA, and maybe also there's a bit of a thing hanging over everything out there. So it's a bit of a convoluted mess right now. But so the question I think for the Raptors right now is, should they? And the answer, as always with these sorts of things, is definitely maybe. I think to overpay for Kawhi Leonard would be a gigantic mistake. He was injury prone when they brought him to Toronto. They were able to get the absolute most out of him, and now he is 6 years older than that. And it hasn't gotten better since, injury-wise. So there is obviously a significant amount of risk that you are bringing in when you bring in a Kawhi Leonard with this. There is also the whole tree watering thing that is hanging over this, that I don't know how much he is going to get punished for it. I don't think the Raptors would get caught up in any of that. But it is a thing that is happening, right? And there's an investigation that is going on at a snail's pace. So there are obviously, I say this about a few other things. How is this going to go wrong? How is this going to go well? Those are obvious, right? Like the upside is obviously like, could win an NBA championship. You know, like that's where the upside of this is. And how it goes well is he locks in, they're able to get the most out of him physically, maybe a bit of a reduced role because you do have a couple of other pieces around there, and it all fits perfectly and they go on to win an NBA championship. How it doesn't work is that his legs explode and he just doesn't fit with the team, and the vibes are off, and there it goes. Like it's pretty obvious how this goes right and how this goes wrong. And so for Toronto to be bringing in that amount of risk and trying to bring all of that, make the most out of it, you can't exactly be giving up 10 first-round picks. And so the rumored deals right now, basically it all revolves around Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick going to the Clippers, and along with some form of draft compensation. That is where this kind of swings, because right now it is picks that are being talked about. And for the Raptors, they are in a spot where it looks like they're trying to get better, right? Like they are, this is, the rebuild's over, I guess. They didn't get a whole lot out of it, but the rebuild's over. So off they go. I don't love the idea of giving up too much. It's basically what we are getting at here. So if it's like 3 picks or whatever, then it gets a little bit, yeah. And then if it's less than that, I don't know if the Clippers are doing it. So this is still one, I'm going to believe it when I see it. But I do find it interesting that it is Ingram who is being brought up in these trade discussions and not RJ Barrett. Ingram makes a little bit more money, or quite a bit more money than RJ. So the piece that you have to attach to send over to the Clippers doesn't have to be as big financially, which is why the Grady Dick one actually does kind of work out there financially for Toronto to be making that work, and for the Clippers as well. But I get, like, we talk about, could these guys play in the NBA Finals we just watched with the Knicks and the Spurs, and I'll throw in Spurs Thunder as well. And the more you watched the playoffs, the more it was obvious RJ Barrett could be that guy. Decision-making had a bit of issues at times, and it did seem like as soon as they put a big dude on him, his strategy of, let's drive to the paint and see what happens, generally ended in a block or a turnover, but he at least had that competitive spirit to him. Ingram gets hurt at the end, but he was pretty miserable for a few games in that series against Cleveland. And so it does feel like you are selling high on a guy who you got the most out of health-wise. So if you are able to do that, if it is minimal-ish amount of picks with Dick and Brandon Ingram to the Clippers for Kawhi Leonard, I think it makes a whole lot of sense. We could talk about where the fit of the lineup is. If you go quickly, RJ, Kawhi, Scotty, insert center there, whether it is that they go super small with CMB, or if Pirtle finds the fountain of youth again, or a functioning back, and they're able to take off that way. You can see You can see where it would really work, but you can also see where there might be, okay, well, this guy's used to having the ball a lot, and this guy's used to having the ball a lot, and this guy's the point guard. So how are we going to make this all work? And so it would be a big test for Darko. But overall, if you are able to pull this off, assuming that you're not giving up your draft capital for the next decade, I think this makes a lot of sense on the Toronto side. But I would caution against getting too optimistic about this at this particular time, because we've been down this road before. But what do you guys think? Like, if you're the Raptors, obviously that's where my focus is. Is this really the trade that you want to be making? Is this the step forward that this team really wants to be doing? And if you're a Clippers fan, is what we talked about, is that enough to get Kawhi out of there and start a new era of LA Clippers basketball? Let me know in the comments, and we can keep that conversation rolling there. This trade season in the NBA has been crazy, with teams throwing haymaker after haymaker, and then some very interesting, smaller under-the-radar moves happening. Let's break down 3 big-ish trades in the NBA. I think big in impact. Names, maybe not as much on one of them, but massive, massive impact. And we'll start with LaMelo Ball on his way to the Minnesota Timberwolves. As with most things surrounding the Ball family, a lot of discussion and a lot of opinions being shared, very wide range of them, on LaMelo Ball getting moved, as the Minnesota Timberwolves acquire him and Josh Green from the Charlotte Hornets for Naz Reid, 3 first-round pick swaps in 28, 29, and 30, and 3 second-round picks, 29, 32, 33, plus an unprotected 2033 pick. Let's start from the Minnesota side, as they take a big shot and bring in LaMelo Ball. I can see where they're going with this. You see San Antonio, you see Oklahoma City. This team, the Minnesota Timberwolves, was built kind of specifically to deal with Denver. It feels like that problem's behind them, and now a very new and unique challenge is ahead of them with 2 absolute juggernauts at the top of the Western Conference. And so you can go one of 2 ways. You can try to fight fire with fire, try to build a team similar in what they're doing, and try to counteract a whole lot of that. Or you can try to go the other way. And I don't know if Minnesota's going full on the other way, but they're certainly not trying to build a San Antonio-esque team, and definitely not a Thunder-esque team, as they now have LaMelo. Like, they made the move with Randall earlier to be able to sign Ayo. And now LaMelo comes in. It has completely shifted things. Plus Naz Reid, who was a heart and soul type of a player. It completely shifts things around. And so, on the one hand, it gets really exciting when you have LaMelo, who can lob it up to Rudy Gobert 100 times a game, set up Anthony Edwards in a way that he hasn't had a playmaker be able to set him up before, and all of a sudden you can have a really fun and exciting and creative offensive basketball team in Minnesota. The problem is, this is also someone who has been very careless with the basketball. He has put up shots at inopportune times and doesn't exactly mesh with the defensive capabilities of the rest of this team. So it changes the identity, I think, of this group pretty substantially. It gives you maybe a touch of a higher ceiling, but I think the floor on this one drops significantly as well. And for this to be kind of your big shot for Minnesota, it feels like it is a little bit reckless to be doing this. You also do have to wonder why Charlotte is giving up on a guy who has now started to look like he's figuring it out a touch, and now they are starting to progress in the right direction. They had a darn near dominant second half of the season, so why are they looking to make this move at this particular time? Overall, like, I don't love the player. He's just not the type of player that I really lock into, but he is one that I can see where people get really excited about him. Also, very popular and is going to be able to help sell some tickets out there. And it probably does make Anthony Edwards feel better that now he has the best playmaker he has ever worked with at the NBA level to take some of the pressure off of him. So you can see what they were going for. I think they're betting on the wrong horse with this one. On the Charlotte side, this is great. I do think that the pick swap thing is getting a little overblown. Like, I can't believe they give up all these assets. Like, yeah, if it goes well, it's not the worst bit of that. Like, pick swaps are, I don't put a lot of weight into them. You could see, like, if this goes really badly out there, you can see where this is just a devastating trade for Minnesota for the next decade. But the picks aren't going to be that devastating. But I think having Naz Reid in there, he fits almost exactly what Charlotte, I think, was kind of lacking a little bit more of that heart and soul type of a guy, a bit of that crash bang boom to go along with all of the fantastic offensive players that this team has. And so to add that heart and soul and kind of take that away from Minnesota as well, I think is a really good bit of business here for Charlotte. I think he fits in along with what the new direction of the team is obviously going to be. We'll talk about another move they make here in a second. But moving out Melo, replacing him with Colby White, and then still being able to have Knipple that they drafted pretty well, that they have a few other pieces that I think you can get pretty excited about with the Charlotte Hornets. So they didn't get caught up in all the success they had at the end of the season, and they've kind of recognized what it's going to take to play winning basketball and have really locked in on that. So for what it means and just for the roster construction, I think this is a gigantic win for the Charlotte Hornets, who also make another move earlier today as they acquire Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and a 2023 unprotected first from the Phoenix Suns for Miles Bridges, a 2027 second, a 2029 first, that is the least favorable of Charlotte, Utah, Cleveland, and Minnesota. So a lot of conditions on that. First and foremost, Miles Bridges, allegedly not a good dude. And so there is a bit of that. When you have everything that has gone on around this player for the last little while, that is just not something I would want in my organization. And so for Charlotte to get it out, not that they have a bunch of choir boys now, but he's just not a guy I want around my organization. And so to be able to get real things out of it, I think works wonders. But now to add the shooting of Grayson Allen, to add Royce O'Neal to this team, again, maybe a little bit more of that sandpaper, I think this is a good move for the Hornets here. I think it makes sense to do this. For Phoenix, again, you are getting someone who potentially has a lot of problems with them. You are bringing in a little bit of draft capital here, but I don't see where the significant improvement basketball-wise could really come from either. I don't think this makes a whole lot of sense. I think it's a bit of an overpay, both locker room-wise, community outreach-wise, and just from a basketball standpoint. I don't like this at all for the Phoenix Suns. One that I really like is the Detroit Pistons acquiring Isaiah Joe for 2 second-round picks for the Oklahoma City Thunder. We knew that the Thunder were going to have to move on from some guys. We've already talked before about Wiggins and that trade to the Atlanta Hawks. I think this is fantastic for Detroit. They needed more shooting. They do still need more secondary creation behind Cade Cunningham, but they needed shooting. It was very, very obvious. Isaiah Joe, say what you want, my guy can shoot. And so to acquire him for 2 second-round picks, which is nothing, if you're a good team, you should never be drafting in the second round. Be trading those picks all day long to be able to add to your roster. So this checks a gigantic box that Detroit needs, and it does it with a player who has been on winning teams before. It sucks for Oklahoma City that they do have to kind of purge their roster a little bit to be able to keep kind of the core together because they've done such a good job of building this up, but you knew it was coming. They get anything out of it, so I guess there's something. And financially, it gives them a little bit more flexibility. They're already able to use that with a Hartenstein extension, but it does kind of suck that they aren't able to keep the whole thing together, but Detroit is able to benefit from that in a real substantial way. So yeah, love this move for Detroit. What do you guys think? Am I being too harsh on any of these? Am I being too lovey on some of these? Let me know in the comments, or if you're listening to the podcast, hit me up on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. But if you are watching, make sure you hit that like button. Like I said, leave a comment and hit that subscribe button. We are going to be going live at some point here again in the next little while. Maybe not immediately, but at some point. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you know what's going on with Couch Potato Diary. All right, that is the show. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. Happy we've been able to get this rolling a little bit more consistently here over the last little bit. So again, thank you so much for the patience when we were going through some down periods, but now we're back on the upswing, getting the content out for you guys today. If you're listening, make sure you hit that subscribe button or follow depending on where you're at. Remember to leave a review. All that stuff really does help grow the channel. If you are watching on YouTube or Dailymotion, hit subscribe or follow, like the video, and share this with a few people that you know, a couple people you don't like, just to throw them off the scent a little bit. And you can find me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. We'll be back again very, very soon right here on Couch Potato Diary. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.